Welcome back, people. We are live, another edition of the Sideline Talk podcast. In the absence of Den, I'm going to try and fill his big shoes and host tonight's episode. As always, joined by Kingman Kingham and Lee. How we doing, fellas? You all right?
What's happening?
All good, all good.
So what I'm going to do is, I know normally we start with the big breaking news of the weekend, but I think we'll save that till last today. And we'll touch on a few of the other results that happened in the Premier League. I know we tend to get a bit Arsenal, Liverpool heavy on these. So we'll start off with the first game of the weekend, Friday night, Brentford versus Brighton. Massive result for Brentford, who continue to, I suppose, surprise people. I think a lot of people probably had Brighton down as a pretty comfortable win on this one. But Ivan Toney comes to the fore again. Lee, did you catch any of the game? What did you think of the result?
I didn't really catch any of it other than obviously read the report on it. I suppose Brentford at home can always cause a few shocks. And Tony doing Tony things, calmly slotting a penalty away. I don't think it's the biggest surprise. I just don't think you really know what you're going to get with Brentford. And Brighton tend to start seasons well and then occasionally go on the slide. So maybe this is where that's going to start for them. Don't know what the new manager is going to do with Brighton. Tony carrying on his scoring form.
Sam, do you think that Tony's going to make the World Cup squad, given the form that he's showing? How many games we've got left now till we break up? 5 or 6, maybe a couple more than that. Yeah, so, what do you reckon he needs to do in order to guarantee a spot? How many goals do you think it's going to take him, or is it just goals, or is it more than that?
I saw a Twitter poll earlier actually, and he was an option on there, and he came second or something like that. I think it was very Arsenal heavy, so they went with Nketiah over him. But I'd love to see Tony in that England setup. You know, I actually think he's probably one of the best penalty takers in the league. I think he's really calm in that penalty spot. He's versatile, you know. Yeah, okay, fair enough. When he got called up for England, he didn't get on, did he? I can't remember.
No.
Yeah, so that was obviously disappointing. But they're obviously thinking of the idea of potentially having him there and around, you know. I mean, a lot of people were shouting for Tammy Abraham at the moment as well, aren't they? It's kind of like a second to Kane, but. No, I would love to see him there. I think he's a fantastic player. I think Brentford are a good side. I think they've got a bit about them. Like echo Lee's thoughts. I don't know much about the new Brighton boss, but hey, you know, let's see what happens with it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one with Brighton because obviously before Potter left for Chelsea, they were pulling up trees, and now it seems like it maybe have derailed the train a little bit that they were on. And like Lee says, they do tend to start pretty well. And then they do tend to slide sort of come Christmas time. So, but look, I mean, personally, I think at the minute if Kane was to get injured, who would be the name that everyone would ask or scream for to be starting? And I think Ivan Toney's doing all he can to get in there. So I agree with you too. I think he would be my pick to be the understudy to Harry Kane. But moving swiftly on to the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. Leicester. I mean, where do we even start with Leicester, Lee? How long has Brendan Rodgers got before they give him the boot?
I think him and Stevie G are in a race at the moment. Who's going to get sacked first? I'm surprised he's not had like a last warning like the old days, really. I mean, I don't know who they can really bring in, but it's not going well for him, is it?
No,
it's all about survival already for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Do you think a lot of teams are waiting for this World Cup break before they make any rash decisions to see? I think potentially during the World Cup break, it's going to give them a chance to maybe reset, maybe try and get them to the January transfer window. Or do you think he'll even get that far?
Maybe, but it's like 5 games before that, so that's 15 points up for grabs. It's quite a lot, really, especially when you're down the bottom.
And you don't see them getting any of them points at this moment in time. They're playing that high.
especially with him. I think Maddison's suspended for the next game as well. He's obviously been their brightest player. Yeah, it's hard to see where their points are going to come from.
Yeah, I agree. And what about Palace? Patrick Vieira. We don't really tend to talk too much about Palace. They kind of go under the radar. I think he's proven to be quite a decent manager, I think, at this level. I think of all the ex-players that have sort of tried their hand at it, I think he's probably becoming one of the better ones out of that group of sort of ex-Premier League players. Is he... I don't want to say is he ready for a bigger job, because I still think it's a bit too early, but can you see, if he continues on this sort of path, him taking maybe a top 6 job at some point, Sam?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely something there. You know, he sets his team up well. I like Palace. I think Palace have got a bit about them. You know, they're hard to beat. You know, especially at their home ground. We've obviously been done by them a couple of times over the last couple of years. But I just don't know. I mean, rewind it to 16 months ago or something like that. Arsenal fans were calling for Vieira in over Arteta. So, you know, there's obviously an interest there from an Arsenal perspective. But again, you know, Palace, that mid-table team, you know, they've got Zaha that keeps them going, and, you know, Eze and a couple of others. But again, I just don't know. I'd like to see him at a next step, you know, maybe not, you know, top 6 maybe is too much for him. I don't see any of them, of those clubs coming in for a Patrick Vieira at this moment in time, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think it'd be interesting to see potentially what he would do with a bit of a bigger budget. I like some of the players that he's signed. I think that Eze is a good young player. I think that Elise, who he's brought in as well, Mark Gahey at the back, he's brought Anderson in as well. So he's clearly got a type of player that he likes. And I think that when you have a manager that knows exactly what he wants, and he knows exactly what players he wants to play that system, I think he's starting to become quite a shrewd manager. And I think, like you say, maybe in 18 months to 2 years' time, we might be talking about Patrick Vieira taking a job where he's given a bit more funding and a bit more backing. But moving swiftly on to another team who keeps surprising us all is Bournemouth. What has happened to that club since they've got rid of Parker? All they do is pick up points. I mean, they were my shoo-ins to be relegated this season. I thought their transfer window was shocking. I thought then they sacked Parker. But Lee, talk to me about Bournemouth. How are they doing this? What are they doing?
Do you know what? This is just going to be one of those textbook cases where the caretaker manager comes in, does absolutely superb, gets given a full-time job, and then he goes back to being shit.
Yeah,
we've seen it so many times before, and I just think it's going to be one of those cases again. I think it's just change your gaffer. The players have upped their game a bit. Maybe they're getting a bit of luck. I don't know. I don't watch enough of their games to notice that. I mean, I suppose you have got to credit the manager because he's clearly doing well. How long they can keep it up for, I don't know. Obviously, they didn't win at the weekend. They only drew, didn't they? You know, games against Fulham are games they need to be winning if they want to stay in the league. Same goes for Fulham. If they want to stay up, they need to be beating teams like Bournemouth. So I don't think the draw really helps either team. But yeah, Bournemouth obviously one of the form teams in the league at the moment, so fair play to them. But I don't think it will last much longer.
Sam, what do you make of Fulham's start? Because obviously the start of the season they picked up some really good results. Mitrovic has been out for a couple of games. He made his return against Bournemouth. Do you think they're going to be too heavily reliant on Mitrovic staying fit and scoring the goals? But also, I think they need to make sure their home form is better. Like Lee said, I think Fulham would have looked at that game as a game that they should be picking up 3 points in. So where do you stand with Fulham? What do you make of them so far?
Whenever I think of Fulham, I always get that, you know, that yo-yo effect of them for the last couple of seasons where they come up and down every single season. I mean, and they're still to prove that wrong. I mean, obviously they're heavily reliant on Mitrovic. He's a fantastic player. Should be out of that club, let's be real. I'm surprised no one's ever come in for him and snapped him up. But I don't see them being strong enough in the other areas to do well enough to keep that going. Again, yeah, they should have scored. They should have won that game. But I just don't know, man. I mean, it's an iffy one, isn't it, with them? They can always... You just don't know what you're ever going to get with them. Do you remember back in the day, about what was it, 3-4 seasons ago, when they bought Schürrle and all that lot, and they again started off really well, and everyone's like, flipping hell, man. You know, they've got a bit about them. But I personally wouldn't fear playing them at the moment. I don't think you boys would either. I think that it's just something that we just, again, see how they get going against the teams that are in and around them. But they are personally one of my shoe-ins to go down.
Is that the key this year, Lee, for the team sort of from that sort of 15th to 20th position now? Is it's going to be who has the best record against the other? Do you think that's the way that bottom sort of the relegation is going to be decided this year, or do you still see a clear 2 or 3 that are going to be right but rock bottom and down there?
It's very hard. I think it's very hard to call. I know usually when it's around after about 10 games, you sort of get an idea of where the season's going to go for most teams. But I still feel like it's very, very open at the moment. I still feel like most of the bottom half could be sucked into a relegation fight. Which is, I still feel like it's very unpredictable.
No, I agree, mate. And I think that I think it's going to be the team that has the most consistency and the ones that can go on little mini runs. I don't think any of them are going to go on runs that you might say they're going to go 4 or 5 unbeaten. But if they can go 5 where they only lose 2, they pick up a draw or 2 draws and a win, I think it's going to be that team, whoever that team may be, that's going to pick up enough points. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be very open down there. And I think we could end up having a more exciting end to the season in the relegation zone than in terms of the top of the league. But moving on to another team that have been struggling for form and goals, Wolverhampton Wanderers played Forest. Wolves won 1-0. Where do we go? Where do we go with Wolves? Are they going to score enough goals to get themselves out of trouble, Sam?
It doesn't look like it, does it? Let's be honest. Again, Jimenez hasn't been the same, has he, since that horrific injury a couple of seasons ago. I mean, I still think there's a player there. I love him. I absolutely love him. I would have loved to have him at Arsenal before the injury, but I don't know. I mean, they're so reliant on that Portuguese contingency of like just getting them players in and around them, haven't they? And it feels like that they don't ever want to break that mold, But I mean, I feel like they're too. It's weird to say this, too big of a club, and we're too reliant on them being in the Premier League over the last couple of years to ever worry about them going down. But they're in there. It's a shout this season. It's definitely a shout. They're not doing enough.
Lee, what do you make of the reports that Nuno's set to be named their new manager and bringing him back? Do you think that's a good move for Wolves at this stage, given his tenure at Spurs? Or do you think they should be looking at someone a bit different? And given the players that they've got at their disposal, like Sam just touched on, your Netos, your Jimenez, Diego Costa, Neves, Podence, why is this team not clicking? Why are they not a more threatening, in a more threatening position to the top teams? Because when you actually watch them play, I remember watching this, I think it was the Spurs game where I think for the majority of the game they outplayed Spurs, but they got to the final third and you just can't put your finger on why them players can't click. But Nuno, good idea or not?
Nah, like he's had his time at the club. Do you know what I mean? He brought in whether it's him or the agents or whatever. He's had his players, he's had his ideas. Obviously left for Tottenham, it didn't work out. But that doesn't even feel like that long ago since he's actually left. I don't really see the point of him going back for either him or the club. I think they're better off just getting someone completely new in with new ideas. Maybe change the way the team play a bit. I do think they've got too much quality to go down still. Maybe Diego Costa will get up to fitness and get some shithousery goals for him. But yeah, I still think they've got too much quality to go down. I think they'll comfortably. They've just beat Forest. I think teams like that, like your Bournemouths and your Fulhams, like we've just mentioned, Leicester, I think they can.
Do you not want to touch on Forest in the sense of do you not think that they have been disappointing as well slightly?
I was just going to move on to Forest and get your two's take on. Obviously, the manager's come in. He's done a great job in the Championship to get them up from where they were. He spent a hell of a lot of money. They've won hardly any games this season, and then just when you're thinking he was about to get the old tic tac, they reward him with a new contract. What does that say to the Forest fans, or what does that say to the Forest squad? What message do you think that owner's trying to send with giving him a new contract?
I think it's rewarding him for the job he's already done, to be fair. I don't think last year anyone really expected Nottingham Forest to even get promoted. So they're very fortunate to even get into the league. And obviously they've had to spend a lot of money because most of the squad they had last season, they've lost about 11, 12 players because they had so many loans into the club.
Yeah.
So they had to spend the money. But then they've got all those players they need to try and gel as a team quickly. So it's not easy coming into a league where you're already punching above your weight. So yeah, I think it's more just. I think they realise they've got a good manager, and because of what he's achieved last year, and they're just trying to reward him with some loyalty. It's clearly, if they obviously they've always been. I think they would have been everyone's favourites to get relegated at the start of the season, and they know they've got a manager ready to possibly get them back up if they go down.
That was what I was going to say. Do you think it's almost just tying him down so that and saying to him, "Look, we're going to give you this season. You do whatever you can do, and then if we do go down, we've got the man that can get us straight back up." Sam, do you think that's possibly what that contract situation was about, or do you see it a different way?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, mate. I do. I think that's how they're looking at it. But do you not think that's just a naive approach of the way of looking at this league? Then, so they're just going to go, right, okay, yeah, we'll spend all this money. You know, we'll get the likes of Lingard in. You know, let's be real, who's touted? He should have gone to West Ham, and they're going to just be like, oh yeah, it's fine. You know, we'll worry about it next year. I don't think you can afford to be that naive in this league anymore.
No, I agree. I agree. I think there's, like you said, there's two ways to look at it. I think they're looking at our way that they obviously feel he's a good enough manager for what their plan is and what their future is, dependent on where that is. So if it's in the Championship, I think they're thinking, well, we've got a man who's proven he can get us up. But also, I do think that maybe they're looking around at who else is available and going, well, actually, we don't actually think there's too much out there that could do possibly a better job with the squad and the amount of signings that he's brought in. So I thought it was a bit of a strange one, but I guess it's a show of faith to the manager. It's gets rid of all the speculation around the club so that he can just concentrate on trying to get them some sort of performances and results. But it's not looking good for Forest. So then we move on to Spurs. That was the late kickoff on Saturday night. Everton. Lampard looked like he had started to get a tune out of Everton, but obviously went over to White Hart Lane and got beat 2-0. To be honest with you, I didn't see any of that game, so I'm relying on you two to tell me how it went. I'll come to you, Lee. What do you make of Spurs? Do you see them as being genuine title contenders, or are we talking just top four with Spurs this season?
I don't think I'll ever see Spurs as genuine title contenders, to be honest with you. Top three, I would say, maybe. I think they'll be looking at around where they are now, basically third. I don't think any higher. I don't think they play entertaining football at all. It's very boring to watch, very pragmatic. I think they might come a bit unstuck when it comes to playing the big top six teams. And I think there's always a chance in them for sort of slipping up against the lesser teams as well, because their football can be quite bland. But I do think when it comes to teams like Everton, they do at the end of the day have too much quality there, especially with like Harry Kane and Son. Conte is a good manager, I'll give him that, but in terms of challenging for the title, forget it.
No. So, Sam, what do you make of? I know I'm not going to ask you to touch on Spurs because we know where your allegiance lies with them. So I'm going to ask you to touch on Everton. Where do you see Everton this year? Do you see any improvement from? Obviously, I know at the start of the season we were all suggesting that they would probably be in the battle for the relegation places. Do you see them having enough to steer well clear of that? Where do you expect Everton to sort of finish based on what you've seen of them so far?
Judging by what I've seen of them, and I'll be honest with you, it isn't a lot. But, I feel that, Lampard's now installing his ideas. So I personally would give Everton, a top half of the bottom end of the table, touching on the bottom end of the top half as well, if you know what I mean. I don't see them having any problems with the teams around them. That's the thing. But again, Spurs, I don't want to touch on Spurs, actually. I'm not going to. So, no, we'll leave it on that. But, yes, again, Lampard's has been under pressure, isn't he, since the end of last season? So he's got to start getting these results away from home and at home as well. But I don't think Everton have enough quality, with the likes of getting things wrong with Delhi, etc., and stuff like that. They're always under scrutiny, whoever they're going to bring in, because they're just like they're almost plucking at strings here. They haven't got anyone to go, all right, we'll have him. Because they haven't got that draw anymore. Everton are a big club, man. They've got a lot of history, But I don't think they have to worry about going down as such. They're too big of a club. Yes, they're fucking boring to watch. Yes, they haven't got anything going for them at this moment in time. But again, I see them comfortably. If I was to pluck out a number, 13th, 14th.
They need a striker. They desperately need a striker.
Oh, mate, you can't get any
They've got
games.
a solid defence, and somehow Lampard's turned Iwobi into fucking prime Patrick Vieira. But like their defensive midfield's pretty solid, but they're just again, it's a bit Wolves-ish. They're sort of lacking going forward, I think.
I mean, I know you say that with them needing a striker. I do find it kind of a strange move that they went inside Neil Maupay. Never been prolific. You need a goal scorer. I think Everton, given that they're not a club that has no money, I know they were under a lot of financial restraint this summer, but you'd like to think that there was someone out there better than Neil Maupay to lead the line for them, unless they're thinking, look, Calvin, what's his name? Calvin Lewin was due back, I think, a little bit earlier than maybe they've anticipated. So maybe they were banking on Maupay being more of an impact player rather than a starter.
Lingard, shouldn't they? Judging by him going to Forest, that they could have got him.
I think the Lingard thing is an ego thing with Lampard. I think he likes to have players in there that are not going to cause any trouble, not going to be an issue in terms of the squad morale and things like that. So I think he likes a certain type of personality as well as player, and I think maybe he's just struggling to find that right fit at the minute. But I agree with you guys. I don't think the Everton fans will be happy with finishing sort of 13th, 14th, but I don't really see how they finish much higher than that. I think if they were to finish 10th this season, I think their fans would snap your hand off for that at the minute.
Yeah, based on how they finished last year, yeah.
Don't they, though? I feel like they have been through it lately, haven't they? They are a club now, and it's just like, wow.
Talking of a club who are going through it, and I think that if we were talking next manager sacked, I think Steven Gerrard's walking on thin ice. Another defeat, another underwhelming performance by them. Lee, I'll come to you because I know that Gerrard holds a soft spot in your heart like mine. What's going wrong with Aston Villa and Gerrard? Why? Because on paper their squad looks more than capable of finishing in the top half, but he just can't seem to get a tune out of any of them. Where do you think the problems lie?
I actually think with this one, a lot of it is down to the players. Like I did watch a fair bit of their game against Chelsea. In the first half an hour, Villa should have had a couple of goals.
Kepa made some outstanding saves.
Yeah,
to be fair to him.
But at the same time, Villa should have been scoring them. Danny Ings.
Why is Kepa back in the fold? Is Mendy hurt or?
No, I think Mendy's just been shit.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think Mendy had made a few mistakes, and then I think he picked up a slight knock, and Kepa didn't really do anything wrong, so he's just kept with him. But you're touching back on Villa, Lee. Explain to me what do you think other than just the players' performance? Is there anything that Gerrard can change? Is there anything he should be doing more, or do you just generally just think that the players are not performing?
Yeah, I just think people like Ollie Watkins, like his finishing has been terrible. Danny Ings he was shooting when he should be passing it and stuff like that the other day. Coutinho's, you throw him into the pitch to try and get goals and assists, and he's not providing them. Maybe there is things Gerrard. Tyrone Mings as well. He don't help.
I mean,
he's awful, isn't he?
I said this the other.
That England squad at all, boys. I'm sorry. Anyway, near squad.
I said the other day I got into a bit of a row with an Aston Villa fan because I was defending Gerrard, and I said one of the things I pointed to was it's not Gerrard's fault that Tyrone Mings makes a howler 5 minutes into the game. As a manager, what more can you do? You set a team up, and your centre half goes and puts one on a plate for a Chelsea side who are absolutely flying. It's always going to be backs to the wall.
But I don't think Gerrard didn't help himself before the game when he's come out and said Chelsea should be coming to Villa Park and blowing us away and challenging for the title. Comments like that, not backing your team, is not helping.
Do you not think, though, as well, touch on something quickly, do you not think that they should have, Martinez should have done better for the free kick?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he was doing with his hands. He just didn't put them out.
Yeah, exactly. He's gone from being I
think it's one of them as well with Villa is that when you're losing, everyone's confidence is just shot, isn't it? It's almost like they need a result to go their way, and then maybe that will just breed a bit of confidence into the squad again. But they're on their knees, aren't they?
They've been losing too much in the last couple of games. I think they'd actually gone like 4 games unbeaten or something like that not too long ago.
To be fair, though, I agree with you as well. I think
they're not winning enough.
No, I agree with you. I personally think that with Aston Villa is, like you say, for large portions of that game against Chelsea, they're probably a better side, and I think that in itself may be enough just to keep Gerrard in the job for a little while, because they're seeing that there is something to be excited about, and once they start converting some of these chances, maybe the tide will turn for them. But they're just in a bad run. But I think there's a lot of rumours going around that Pochettino is being eyed up by the Aston Villa owners as a potential replacement.
Do you think he touched it?
Sorry?
Do you think Poch would touch that?
I think any excuse to get him back in the Premier League. Yeah, I think he would. I think he would.
Surely
it's a way back in, isn't it? It's a way back into the Premier League, and that's where the money is, and that's where
he would get money.
Yeah.
Tricky one.
Touching on to Chelsea, Sam, I know that obviously London rival. Since Potter's come in, I think they've gone unbeaten. Since he's come in. I think it's 4 wins and a draw, or it might be 3 wins and 2 draws. But a lot of people question whether Potter had the minerals to take a big club and to do it. But so far, so good. What do you make of Chelsea since Potter's gone in there?
They look organised. I'll give them that. You know, going forward, Chelsea have always been a threat, haven't they? You know, they've always capable of scoring the goals. But he's got them drilled. You know, and I was wrong. I was hoping for them to fall off the face of the earth. You know, have a bad time under him and stuff like that. But again, there's a manager there, isn't there? You know, the shouts for the England job for him maybe were proven right. There is a manager there. I don't think he's been given enough respect since doing that job at Brighton to coming into Chelsea. So I like it. I like what I see. Obviously, it kills me to say that they're going to be threatening in and around for all of us at the moment. But yeah, he's turned it around, so we've got to watch out for them.
Lee, what do you make of Chelsea's mini revival under Potter? Do you see them as clawing their way back into any sort of title conversation, or again, do you see them sort of in and around the sort of top 4 with sort of Spurs?
Yeah, I still think it'd be with Spurs around top 4. I think it's too early to say how good of a job he's doing. You know, his Champions League form hasn't been brilliant. He still drew against a terrible team in his first game. Yeah, I think he hasn't had that big test against a big club yet, I don't think. So it'd be interesting to see how he does against the big 6 teams. That's when his real credentials will be made, I think. Yeah, he's not really done too much wrong. So jury's out. It's too early.
I agree. I think we still need to give like you say, when he comes up against the rest of the top 6, I think that's when we'll judge Chelsea. I think most people would have had Chelsea to win that one at the weekend, and they did comfortably in the end. Moving on to another team that are kind of going a bit under the radar, and I feel like no one's really talking about either team at the minute, oddly, which is Newcastle and United. Both teams kind of just plodding along. They're not really pulling up trees, but they're not getting heavy defeats. They're picking up points along the way. Sam, what do you make of Ten Hag so far? Obviously, he got a result against Liverpool. He's got a result against Arsenal. But then since then, he's kind of, I wouldn't say he's struggled, but it's been quite a slog for them to pick up any points, especially at home. How do you think that project is going?
That's where they seem to be falling off at the moment. Is their home form. You know, United should always be beating Newcastle at home. I'm sorry, but I like what Eddie Howe's doing there at Newcastle. I like the Newcastle fit, let's say, at the moment. But again, you know, if you're putting it down to the quality on the pitch and the experience of the managers, then I think that's points lost there completely. I like a lot of what I'm seeing there from Ten Hag. You know, dropping Maguire, you know, that seems to be a thing there with a couple of games ago. It seems to have sparked them on a bit, you know. Again, the Ronaldo's now gone quiet. He's getting on with it. So, yeah. Can I see them pushing that top 4 bracket? Personally, no. But you never know, you know. They're getting the results against the big boys at the moment. And I'm not classing Arsenal as a big boy as such, but you've got to look at form. And, yeah, you know, they're going to be there, you know.
Lee, what do you make? I mean, I didn't see there was a huge penalty shout for Newcastle in that game. I don't know if you saw it. What do you make of Newcastle, and where do you think the best is for them? Obviously, sitting in the top 6 at the minute. Do you see them being able to maintain that sixth position? And what did you make of the penalty shout if you saw it?
I didn't see it, to be fair. Yeah, I think I've been pretty vocal about my support of Newcastle at the moment.
You like them, didn't you? I'll give
In
you
the
that.
last sort of month or so. Yeah. Since Eddie Howe's come in, I really like them. They're entertaining to watch. They're very attacking. Even with similar players, even when he has to use his the players that the previous gaffer had, he seems to be doing better with them, like Almiron and Joel Linton and people like that. And they seem to be putting in performances. So I think they'll be happy with a 0-0 draw at United. Happier than United are, anyway. And yeah, I still think they should have ambitions for 7th and 6th place in the league. I think they'll probably recruit pretty well in January. I definitely think they'll be looking to maybe sign more players towards the attacking side, especially.
Do you like how they've done it as well? Touching on their recruitment, boys. Do you think
Yeah.
that they've done it in the right manner?
Yeah, they seem to be buying where they need, which is the right way. Which is the right way to go. So.
I think we spoke about it the other week, and I think we had all said that we was all expecting possibly like the influx of like the big name signings just coming in, signing whoever they need to boost their commercial side. But actually, they've gone about it in quite a reasonable way in terms of, like Lee said, they're not buying beyond their means. They're buying for here and now with a view to being able to attract them top players in maybe a few years' time. And I think I agree with Lee. There's going to be, I think January they'll recruit maybe one or two again, maybe let one or two of the fringe players go, and I think they'll just do it slowly and steadily. But yeah, I agree with Lee. I think a 0-0 draw away at United for Newcastle, they're not going to turn their nose up at that.
They've got draws against both Manchester clubs now, so that's two points which most seasons they would lose. So, if they can keep picking up results against other clubs outside of them, like 7th downwards, outside the Big Six, then there's no reason why they can't push further forward.
No, I totally agree, mate. And moving on to another team who I think we all expected to sort of be in where Newcastle are this season is West Ham. Obviously, had an indifferent start to the season. Declan Rice keeps proving me wrong because he keeps fucking scoring. But Sam, I'll come to you. Obviously, touching on West Ham, a draw away at Southampton, not a bad result, but probably not a great result given where they sit in the table. What do you make of West Ham this season? Do you like what you're seeing? Do you think they're getting back to where they were last season, or do you think they were just punching well above their weight last season and they're back to where possibly most people probably feel that they sort of belong?
Realistically, yeah. The latter of the two there. I feel like we're now seeing, the true colours of them, of where their class kind of lies. I like West Ham, I like their fans, I like their history, I like what they're about. But, they can't keep relying on Deckers to pull them out or something like that, or Samaka that when he gets going again, there's just not enough there across the board for them that I can see them actually doing anything again like they did last year. But, Southampton, poor side at the moment, mate. I think personally, I don't think they're anything like Southampton's of old. I don't think that they're anywhere near as good as they have been, have they?
No, and I was just going to come to Lee on Southampton. Do you think that obviously they've been surviving by sort of, I wouldn't say the skin of their teeth every season, but they've been, in the conversation for large parts of probably the last 2 or 3 seasons. Do you see with this new philosophy of buying all these youngsters that they're going to keep themselves up this year? Do you think that they're going to be one of them teams that might get dragged into it, or do you see them being another sort of middle of the bottom half sort of table?
I don't think I'd agree that they've always been in a conversation. I don't think they've been in a relegation fight or anything in recent times. And I think Southampton have this way of, I feel like they've had this way for a while of trying to get their youngsters through and stuff like that, going a bit under the radar. It's kind of the Southampton way. There is a part of me that feels this season they might get their comeuppance a little bit. So, I don't think they can be too disheartened. I think West Ham would be more upset at the draw than Southampton.
What do you make of obviously?
I do think they'll still stay up, though. I actually think they've got a good manager.
I do as well.
Yeah.
I know that he's taken some sticks for getting a couple of 9-0 drummings, but I actually do quite like Ralph Hasenhüttl. I think given a decent amount of money to spend and a better squad, I think he would do a much better job. And I think actually you've got to look at it, and with the resources that he's got and to keep them in the Premier League over the last sort of 3 or 4 seasons, I think he's actually doing an all right job, to be fair to him. And but I do just feel that a lot of clubs sort of down that end of the table do get trigger happy, and if results, you can go on a run of maybe 2, 3, 4 defeats, and then all of a sudden the firing squad start coming out because they're worried about their safety. What do we make?
A while as well.
What do we make of Declan Rice? Because every player at the minute that I seem to have an opinion on, he goes and proves me wrong. What do you make of Declan Rice? Are we now seeing Declan Rice becoming the sort of box-to-box midfielder that we all kind of are being told he is? And I think this has been my sort of biggest criticism of Rice, is being that when I think of box-to-box midfielders, I think of, your Gerrards, your Lampards, your De Bruynes, these type of players. Are we now seeing him slowly starting to evolve away from this holding midfield player into more somebody who can now add goals to his games and assists and actually affect games in the way that a De Bruyne does, or am I expecting too much of him, Sam?
I don't know. I think maybe you are expecting a bit too much of him. He's in a side of a far less quality of a Gerrard, a Lampard, and all that lot. But again, he's a young man. I feel he's a natural leader. I think he's on that progression ladder to overstepping his presence at a club of West Ham. He needs to be, triggering the top end echelons of the league. But I don't know. I mean, I like him. I don't think he's at that level that some West Ham fans will talk about. I don't think he's elite. I mean, but again, would I have him at Arsenal, mate, in a heartbeat?
Lee, where do you stand on Declan Rice? I know that you are quite a big fan of his. Do you feel that he's starting to shake this shackle of being a holding midfielder and becoming more of a box to box, or do you still see him as someone more who's more of a holding midfielder rather than a goal getter and influencing games in that way? Where do you see it?
I still see him as more of a defensive midfielder and can obviously fill in a centre back sometimes. That's just the way he's built. Like he's not. I wouldn't say he's a technical player. Like he hasn't got a wand of a right peg, or he's not an attacking player. He's like an athlete. He's dogged. He's gritty. He's a leader.
I think he's that new breed of.
He intercepts play. He tackles. He can dominate games in that way. He can sort of is there to be inside like the engine room as such. He's not going to be the one who's going to make the difference kind of thing, but he will help your team. And I do rate him very highly. He's still young. He's still very young for a midfielder. Midfielders don't peak to their, 26, 27, 28. So he's still got a while to his peak. And I think he's an excellent Premier League player. And I don't know why none of the top 6 wouldn't take a punt on him.
I think the reason for him not having a move is just the price that West Ham have probably
English
for him.
tax.
Yeah. Do you think now? Obviously, we're seeing a lot of players over the course of the weekend. Jota, for example, we've seen a number of players now that are missing out on the World Cup. Is there a worry that if Declan Rice was to get injured and he wasn't going to the World Cup for England, do you worry that there is a replacement for him in the squad, or is that something that we need to be hoping and praying that Declan Rice is not injured?
Look at the alternatives. It's not great, is it? Calvin Phillips doesn't get a minute at City.
Where do you stand on that, though, boys? Do you genuinely think that Southgate will? Because has he featured much in the friendlies?
I think I think Phillips, if he's fit, he'll go, but I don't think he'll necessarily be starting like he was in the last tournament.
I think Bellingham would start with Rice, but if you did say, like, imagine Rice got injured, who would you play? I don't know, Henderson, Ward-Prowse. There's not a plethora of talent there.
No.
So.
No, I agree. And I think that is the worry, seeing him sort of step up like he has done in the last few weeks, especially for West Ham. And he tends to play every game, including Europa League games. And I am just getting slightly worried now that with the news of some of the players that are dropping like flies in a minute, that if we was to lose Declan Rice, I think England would be severely hurt by that, because like you say, we haven't got a huge talent pool in the centre of the park. So that'd be interesting. But moving on to Super Sunday, and the 2 big games of the weekends, the ones that everyone was anticipating. We'll start with Sam and his beloved Arsenal. What did you make of it? Did Arsenal get out of jail, or are Arsenal proving to everybody that this is what we can expect from them, that they're going to be able to do this, where they don't particularly play well, but they still grind out the results? How did you see it?
I think there's two ways you can look at that. One, the main one is how the hell did we get away with that, realistically. But then again, we've seen that for years with the likes of your Cities and yourselves, where you don't play well and you get the result. I've got a couple of issues with how we actually played the game. Gabriel was lucky that he wasn't sent off. Let's be honest. I think that's a blatant kick out. He's got that in him. I don't like seeing that from him. He's the bozo of the group at the moment. He's the one that people seem to get at. And but then again, if you take him out, you move White into that middle. Does it muck about with the team and like how well they've been doing together as a group? I don't know. I think Bamford coming on for them changed the game. I think Bamford was a bright light. Again, talking about maybe an England call up or something like that for the squad, someone to have there and around. Don't think he's good enough to be, first, second, or third, maybe, but you never know. It's an option, They don't seem to get enough games out of him. So, very lucky. Very, very, very lucky. Obviously, buzzing that we won. And yeah, we're going clear at the top. So, it's a lifestyle now.
Lee, what did you make of the Arsenal game? And also just touching on obviously I was watching the build up to Liverpool game and I saw it come through that Gabriel had been sent off. There was a penalty awarded to Leeds in the 90 whatever minute it was. I'm sure you've seen it back. What was your take on Arsenal's performance and also the penalty and red card and then the overturning of it? How did you see it?
It seemed like the right decision to me, I think.
You don't think that's a kick out?
I think I would need to watch it again, to be honest. I was in the pub at the time. Obviously, they had the Villa game on before the Liverpool one, so I didn't really see it that well. But I think Bamford goes down very theatrical. All I say is like fair play to Arsenal because they're nowhere near their best and they've won against Leeds. Leeds are a very tough team to play at the moment. Jesse Marsh has got them fighting a bit like Bielsa used to when they first come up. They're not an easy team to play, I would say, especially at Ellen Road as well.
What do you make of Jesse Marsh? Because I think when he came in, there was this perception that American coaches are not all that great. They tend to struggle, but actually. Listening to him talk and the way and how passionate he is, I actually really quite like him. I think he plays a decent brand of football. I think he understands what it means to play for Leeds and play at Ellen Road. And he's trying to make Ellen Road that fortress that it used to be back in the early 2000s, where, let's face it, none of the top teams enjoyed going to play Leeds away when they had the likes of Harry Kewell and Viduka and Alan Smith and all these type of players. What do you make of him, Sam? Do you think he's doing a good job, or do you think he's just riding the wave of sort of the emotional ride that most managers get when they sort of get through the door? But if the results continue, it might start to turn on him. How do you see Jesse Marsh?
Yeah, the same with how you just put that there towards the end. I think he's done well. He didn't do great though, did he? Towards the end of last year, from what I can remember, I didn't think he instantly improved them with a swish of his wand or whatever. But yeah, I mean. It's clear to see that they're missing Rafinha. They haven't got that outlet anymore, have they? They haven't got that person that goes through I know they like that Harrison. I like Harrison, but
they got Aronson as well. He looks like a good young player.
Yeah, but again, age bracket and stuff like that. How can they rely? How long can they rely on these sort of players? There's not much.
Rodrigo before he got injured was doing bits.
Yeah, but again, how long have they been waiting for that to start ticking?
Yeah,
flipping out. But I like Leeds. I like what they're about, but I don't think they're this organised outfit that everyone's going on about. Yes, they put us under pressure. It weren't hard. We couldn't do anything in that second half. But, I don't know, mate. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh.
As an Arsenal fan, I've spoke to a lot, and they refuse to talk about being in a title race or a title conversation. Given the result that we'll touch on in a minute, are you, as Arsenal fans, finally going to admit that you're in the race for the title, or are you still going to pretend that you're not?
We're not in a title race, mate. This is just. I'm not one of these fans, and I don't know if you boys will have a view on it. I'm not going to change the goalposts the way the season's going. Our main aim was to get top 4 this season. yes, we're doing exceptionally well at this moment in time. Obviously, a lot of teams have started slower, so we're looking a lot better than the majority of the teams at the moment in time. But if we were to fall off completely, still get fourth or third, I'll be happy with that. I just won't. Ask me towards the end of next month and after the World Cup, if we're still in conversations with, say, a game over City or something like that, and then we go to theirs or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, okay, we're in conversation, so that just shows how well we must be doing for people to start actually putting us in that bracket. But again, we're an injury away from Jesus, an injury away from Xhaka, an injury away from Partey to being in the crisis again. You've got to remember, Jesus gets injured, we've got Nketiah up front. The geezer scored 4 league goals. That's his all-time ever record, in a season. So, and that was towards the end of last year. That was only because we couldn't play Aubameyang. I don't feel like we are a finished article. It's clear to see we need another midfielder. Maybe Tielemans in January or something like that. I'd love that. There might be a negotiation there, especially if they're doing so badly. But yeah, I'm enjoying it, man. I don't want to jinx it. It's going well.
Lee, just touching on lastly on Arsenal, where have you been surprised by how they've kept this run going? I know the early form sometimes can be a bit deceiving, but we're 10 games in now. Like you say, 10 games in generally tells you sort of roughly where or whereabouts you're going to finish. Are you believing that Arsenal could be in a title conversation, or do you still see it the way that Sam sort of sees it, that top 4 is still the aim?
I think as long as you're up there, you've got to put yourself in a conversation until proven otherwise. Most of the time, the way I personally look at football is you take it game by game, and if you're at top of the league, you've got to take each game as the next game. And if you're top of the league, when that game's coming around, you're in the title race, regardless of what stage of the season it's at. I thought maybe when the start of the season, if you look at their fixtures, maybe they might have had 3 or 4 points less than they've got now. But they've beat most of the teams I'd say they're expected to beat, except for maybe Liverpool. The only thing they haven't done is they've beat teams consistently, whereas maybe in past years they might have slipped up against, like the Leeds game, for example. So they're doing against the teams, I would say, lesser teams than them. They're getting the wins that they should be getting. And I think over the last sort of year and a half, I would say sort of since our sort of like the second quarter of last year when Arteta started playing the young players, you could actually see Arsenal making a lot of progression. So I don't think there's a massive surprise that they're up there after 10 games, first 10 games of the season, to be honest.
Yeah, but do you see us sustain,
especially when you've got the other teams who are usually up there fading, like Liverpool, like United, who started the season terribly. City have now lost a game. Tottenham's Tottenham. Chelsea have lost a couple. So, why would they not be up there?
No, I agree. I think the Arsenal fans, as I said before, they should enjoy winning football matches. They've had a torrid time over the last few seasons where, they've been scrimping and scraping for top 4, and now you're well and truly in that conversation. So I think they should enjoy it, but just don't enjoy it.
If we won it, boys.
Just don't enjoy it too much. Well, listen, we'll move on to the big clash that will happen on Sunday afternoon. I'm sure Lee is itching to give us his verdict on Liverpool versus Manchester City. This is a game that everyone told us we couldn't win. Everyone told us that we were going to get slapped 4 or 5-0. Everyone told us Liverpool were finished. Lee, talk to me. How impressed were you with the victory over Man City? And should we be saying Liverpool are back, or do we have to just accept that this is a one-game thing and we need to keep our feet on the ground? How did you see it?
I just love getting carried away with wins like this. We are back. No, I don't know. It's a hard one because we've still got so many injuries and stuff like after Jota. But just a weekend's game. I think for the last couple of seasons, I think Liverpool versus Man City has been the best fixture in the league, just for the quality on display. And just like Sunday's game was just pure fucking chaos, absolute chaos. There was proper bit of bite into it. Whether City's claim of it all coming from Klopp's comments on Friday about their spending has sparked that, I don't really believe that. I think there's just a genuine rivalry there now, based on how the last couple of seasons has gone. Some of the flying challenges fucking brilliant. Obviously, Klopp sending off. Van Dijk and Gomez were unbelievable. Van Dijk's been written off all season, and he was phenomenal. It was nice to see Liverpool sort of abandon the higher line for a game, and it obviously worked an absolute treat. James Milner, I mean, I was included, and when I heard he was starting right back, my worst fears, I was thinking this is going to be 4 or 5-0 here. He was fantastic. Again, that was helped by the sort of the lower block from the defensive line. I can't really fault any of the Liverpool players. I thought they're fantastic. And Mo Salah, that's the best I've seen him play in a long time. Absolute class goal. He was a threat all day. His work rate was fantastic. Still proving that he's absolutely world class. Loved it. Absolutely. Even if the game finished 0-0, I think I would have enjoyed that. It was just great fun to watch. Even Núñez coming on was just the most chaotic substitute performance I've ever seen. Like he looked like minute by minute as you're watching him, he looked like he was learning how to be a footballer. Like he was going this mad run down a left channel or wherever in the pitch and then completely fuck up a pass. It was chaos. It was great. I loved it. And it's to just be that one team City can't seem to beat once again this year. Loved it.
Sam, talk to me from a City perspective. Obviously, everyone was telling us that Liverpool were in for a good idea, and everyone was expecting Haaland to run wild. I don't want to say they didn't turn up, because obviously they did turn up and they did make it a very hard game. But is there any concern that City might crumble in these big games with big atmospheres now? And have Liverpool given other teams the blueprint on how to make it hard for City to play football?
Maybe, potentially. I just think you just got to take credit on how well that you guys played there. I think you were fantastic. I don't like giving you a lot of credit, I don't, but I think that you were brilliant. If anyone wants to see how to keep Haaland quiet, bar that, that left-footed chance he had, he done nothing, did he? Let's be honest. You done well. Salah should have scored the first attempt, didn't he? Let's be real.
It's a great save.
Great save, but you back him all day to get that, and then obviously the second chance he was given was proven that he knew what to do that time. He lifted it. But yeah, man, I love watching you two go at it. Even from when it's a friendly in the Charity Shield, as they say, to this, I love it. I think it's such a great advert for the league. I mean, obviously, I gave you a lot of banter beforehand saying, I think you're going to lose, and obviously, as an Arsenal fan, I probably wanted you to win this, but I didn't see you winning it. Bad form, but come out with that. I don't know if you're going to touch on the Klopp incident towards the end.
Yeah, so I just
wanted to say about your comment actually there, Dale, about City crumbling under atmospheres. I think you might actually have a bit of a point there. It'd be quite an interesting one to see this year, because if you think back to we say about how happy Arsenal fans are nowadays, there's actually a genuinely really good atmosphere at the Emirates. I never thought I'd see it. I never thought I'd say it a couple of years ago. I mean, everyone used to call it a library, but now it's actually a really loud, passionate atmosphere, and it's probably quite similar to Anfield on a massive day. So it'd be interesting when City come there, because I think we saw it last season. Arsenal were winning, weren't they? Until
we were a better team, weren't we?
Yeah, then you got the red card, which killed it for you. So I'm intrigued to see how City get on this season, because I do think there could be a bit of a soft spot there for them.
Do you know what the biggest thing that I took, just before we touch on the incidents that happened with City? I look at City this season, and I actually do think that they're weaker than they were last season in terms of their squad depth. I know we can talk about Haaland and what he brings and the goals that he's scored, but if you look at what City have actually done on the other end, they've conceded a lot of goals this season to teams that you probably wouldn't expect them to. But also, Pep didn't make a change on Sunday, and he also changed the system to play Liverpool, where he put De Bruyne out wide. He tried to double up on Robertson with Cancelo, and it backfired again. And Pep seems to always, when he comes up against Klopp, he seems to change what he's done all season. And I listened to some of the Man City fans ringing up TalkSport after the game, and they were all saying the same thing, that Gundogan and Rodri in midfield just was a no-no. De Bruyne, taking him away from what's been working with him and Haaland, that link-up play, putting him out wide, and he was kind of isolated. You didn't see him getting into them dangerous positions. But I do actually think their squad depth, with the likes of selling Jesus and selling Sterling, they didn't seem to have an answer to going 1-0 down. Did you guys see it that way, or do you still think that they're as strong as last season? I personally don't think they're actually as strong a side as last season.
I've never looked at it like that, to be honest with you. You know, I think because they've been blowing teams away all year, or from the back tail end of last season to even now. You know, I've never. But then I just think that you've got their number. You know, I think Klopp's always had his number. I mean, it's a different discussion. You know how we've been back and forth in the group chat about who's the better manager. Putting that aside, Klopp's his bogeyman, isn't it? Like, let's be real. I won't hide away from that fact. Klopp knows how to rattle him, get under his skin, and make them work against a high press of a City team. It just works perfectly for you. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Lee sees it with, you know, going forward. Is that enough to spur you on against them? But
I think the point I'm probably trying to make here, Lee, is that obviously we've seen Haaland and De Bruyne be the main source of goals for Manchester City this season. You know, that ball from De Bruyne, and he almost put one on a plate for Haaland. It was a header straight down Alisson's throat. But if you nullify De Bruyne like Liverpool did, and Haaland's not at it, how do they change it? Because to me, it looked like he was really unwilling to throw the young lad on Alvarez, and it didn't seem like it almost seems to me that if you do stop Haaland scoring, you stop Manchester City potentially winning games, because I couldn't actually see where they was going to get a goal from after we went 1-0 up. I don't know how you sort of saw it.
No, I did feel like they were a threat throughout the game, to be honest. I was sort of like my arsehole was going.
Oh yeah, no, mine was as well.
I just think I think Liverpool were just fortunate that, you know, I know there's been many discussions about how good Van Dijk actually is, about whether he's the best centre back in the world. He had one of his probably best performances he's ever had. I think Liverpool were very fortunate. Their defence was absolutely phenomenal. You know, on another day, I think City could have had a couple of goals there. I don't.
Just touching on the defence. Just touching on the defence before we talk about the key instance of that game. England are struggling for a centre half, and where does Joe Gomez fit into that conversation, Sam? Do you see a world in which Joe Gomez could be, I wouldn't say starting for England, but part of that squad? Is he better than Conor Cody, Harry Maguire, John Stones? Is he better than them, or is he not? I mean, I think he is, but I want to see what a non-Liverpool fan thinks. Would you be against Joe Gomez if he was to continue this form between now and the World Cup, and he was in that squad for England? Would you be against that, or do you think that it's too late for him now?
No, not at all. It's definitely not too late for him. I think he's levels above all the players you just mentioned. I don't understand why he gets disrespected in that manner. He's been reliable for you ever since he's been there, pretty much. You know, he's always stepped in, you know, behind a Matip or something like that, which is, you know, I think Matip's a great player for you lot, but Gomez will always give you an 8, at least an 8 out of 10 every game. I like him. I think he should be given that chance to prove himself on that international stage. I don't know why he's not looked at like that. I don't know why he's never given that opportunity. I've never really thought about it in depth, to be honest with you. And now you're saying that, you know, I just thought that he was never opted in to come play for us or something.
Lee, where'd you stand on Gomez quickly, and then we'll wrap up with the big instance.
Yeah, I actually disagree.
Really?
I think he needs to show his performances on a more consistent basis. I think there's a lot of games where he will have a lapse in concentration and make a mistake, and he gets quite lucky a lot. It doesn't always lead to a goal. I know there was many conversations a couple of weeks ago where people were saying, like, never play Van Dijk and Gomez together ever again, because we just seem to ship goals. And there's reasons behind that, and it's because there is lapses in concentration there. Obviously, he's come back into the team at right back and had a few good performances there. Now he's had one game at centre back, and he's had an absolute worldie. I think he's left it too late for this World Cup. Personally, I think 5 games, you know, probably isn't enough when you consider the settled England squad around him, especially when players like Tomori aren't getting in, who's been doing it consistently for over a season now. So I feel like The only bit of luck he might get is because of obviously Reece James and Kyle Walker might not make it, so he's an option there.
Who do you think though? Touch on that quickly, boys. Who do you think's ahead of him then at the moment?
Tamori, Ben White.
Tamori doesn't get a look in though. Let's be real. Ben White is another one which he could potentially.
I think they will. I think they will be ahead of him. I don't think Gomez has played enough yet. Not played well enough consistently. Maybe if he pulls it out of the bag and has an absolutely stunning next 5 games, who knows? But that would only be six, 7 good games he's had in the last year. So
where do you stand on that, Dale? It'll be interesting to see what you think.
I'm kind of in the Lee camp that I think that he's suffered with so many injuries, but let's not forget him and Van Dijk were the centre-back partnership that won us the league title a couple of years ago. So we can't overlook him. I do think that he's got all the attributes to be a top defender.
How old is he?
24, 25. I agree with Lee. I think it's too late for him for this one, even if he was to have 5 really good games, given the opposition that we're going to be playing. It's not the top draw opposition. I think you can get yourself up for a one-off game like a City at home. But yeah, I'm just interested to see what you guys thought. But listen, we need to touch on, before Mo Salah's world-class finish and turn, there was a goal for Manchester City that was ruled out, controversially in some people's opinion. Sam, what? I don't think there's too much controversy around the pullback. I think it's more that people are saying that the referee was letting a lot of challenges go on Sunday, and then all of a sudden he blows up for a foul or a tug in the build up to Man City's goal. As a neutral, how did you see it? Do you think that was the right call for him to go back and look at that? And as an Arsenal fan, if that was against you, would you be screaming for VAR to rule that one out, or do you think that Man City were hard done by?
No, again, obviously you're never going to like a decision like that going against you, but in the rules of play, I think that's the right decision. You can definitely see him impeding him, pulling him down, which leads to them getting ahead of the man to score the goal. So why not? It's all kicked off from that. I won't lie, and it's that gives it that added bite. But yeah, I think right call, definitely.
Lee, where did you sit on the VAR decision? Do you think Liverpool got lucky, or do you think that it was a good refereeing?
Yeah, it's a foul, and it wasn't even the only foul. It wouldn't even just been that, would it? It would have been kicking the ball out of Alisson's hands after that. So they could have ruled it out for 2 different things. So I don't really see what they've got to moan about, to be honest.
So one of the arguments that the Man City fans was talking about on the radio, which I found quite bizarre, and I just wanted to see what you two thought, was that one of them said VAR was not introduced, and I think a lot of the pundits were saying this as well. Mika Richards was really wound me up after the game because he sat there and said that VAR was never there to re-ref the game. Now, I'd argue that's exactly what VAR has been brought in for. So, where are we going with VAR? Because listen, he gives the tug on Fabinho for the foul, but then he doesn't blow up for a Bernardo Silva RKO on Mohamed Salah in the top end of the pitch. So, is it just the consistency? Do you think there would be this much sort of aggro if he'd have given the foul on Salah, or do you just think it was because it led to a goal, it needed more attention?
Go on, Lee.
Oh, I thought he was asking you. No, I think I feel like it should kind of re-ref the game a little bit. Referees and human can be very inconsistent, and that's what VAR is there for. If there's an obvious mistake and it's led to something, then correct it. It's wrong.
I think my argument on it as well was that, look, he might have seen the pull, but also you don't want to disrupt the game by blowing a free kick. So maybe potentially Liverpool could have won the ball back straight after that and gone on an attack. So I think he potentially was, and I think they're told now to let the game flow, because we have the option to go back and look at something in the build-up now. So I think that was partly to blame for him not giving the free kick, because a lot of the Man City fans are saying, well, if you don't give it in real time, you shouldn't give it at all. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they're told now to let the game flow because we've got the technology to come back and look at it. But and VAR did come out afterwards and say that if it wasn't given for the foul on Fabinho, it would have been given for, like Lee said, the kicking the ball out of the hands of Alisson anyway. So I do think that, I actually think the referee had a pretty good game, to be fair. I thought it was kind of a throwback to some of the old sort of games between like Arsenal and Man United that we used to see, you know, having that bite, and I actually saw some tackles going in for a change, which I love to see all that. But obviously Jurgen Klopp's got himself in trouble. We'll finish up on Kloppy because I think he deserves it. But Sam, I'll come to you. He's obviously facing a touchline ban now, given his antics that happened at the weekend. Obviously, it was a high tense game. There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of decisions, and he's got himself in trouble. What did you make of his?
I love him.
What did you make of it?
I love him. I love that passion. You know, fair play. I mean, I think he's been hard done by in the sense of like, yeah, okay. We don't know what he said. I haven't seen into what was actually mentioned. You know. And his behaviour, because there's previous with him and that third official, isn't there, or something like that. So maybe they're butt hurt on that. But you know, when these refs, when you feel like they get it wrong, you fucking tell them. You know, it's a free world. You're allowed to be disgusted with how they're being. But I mean, yeah, I think it's harsh. You know, the passion's high. It's if Klopp does, if Pep does that, you know, do you think it's going to go that way? I don't think so.
That's what I was going to touch on actually, Lee. What do you make of Klopp seems to get whenever he opens his mouth now, whether it's a press conference, whether it's on the sideline, that people seem to think that Klopp gets special treatment by the FA and the the leaders of the Premier League. Do you think he does get that a little bit of leeway when it comes to saying certain things, or do you just think it's being blown out of proportion? Because Man City fans have now come out and said that he riled up the fan bases with his comments. But the way I saw it was he was asked a question and he gave an answer, but the context was taken out as if he'd come out and said it. Where do you stand on is this just Man City fans clutching at straws?
Yeah, I think they're clutching at straws a bit. They're just a bit bitter, and they sore losers. I think they've pretty much Klopp has just kind of said what most people think. I think most football fans, except for like the team, maybe the fans that support those clubs, would think, yeah, City, Newcastle, PSG, they can pretty much go around and buy whoever they want. I think pretty much that's all we said, really. Mm-hmm. And I think pretty much every football fan will think the same.
Yeah.
That's all we said.
And I think that's the thing. I think if we was in the position that City were in, we would be loving it as well. You know, if we was in the position that Newcastle were in, and we could afford to, the likes of we've been linked to like Mbappe and stuff. If we had the money to go and buy Mbappe, we'd be loving it.
He said in his comments, like it's perfectly legal, it's fine. He's just saying Liverpool can't do that. They're not in a position to do that. Not every team is. I think Frank Lampard even came out today and actually agreed with him, and we know Lampard.
David Moyes did as well.
Yeah, I think David Moyes was supporting the sending off. Really, he was saying like, he was kicking off at the linesman, but was he wrong? No, it was it should have been a free kick. So,
no, I agree. Listen, lads, it was a great game of football. It was a great weekend of football, to be fair, and it comes again because tomorrow night it all starts again, and I think there's even some games tonight as well. So we'll wrap up now. Obviously, leave all your comments in below. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, guys. Get in contact with the lads on all the social media platforms. And hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next Tuesday to have a look at the games that are happening this week. And we'll go from there. Guys, thanks for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll catch up again soon. Cheers, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.
Do not scratch your eyes. You are really seeing the most extraordinary finish here.